Welcome and welcome back. We are here for a review of The Mandalorian Chapter 16. This is Season 2, Episode 8, also known as The Rescue. Um, so, this is a spoilers review, so we're going to get right into spoilers with things. So, if you have not already seen the episode and don't want anything spoiled for you, this isn't the place for you. But the place that I want to start is with the storytelling in general. Now, a lot of the things that I've commented on throughout this series, going back to season 1, are the elements of good storytelling employed by the directors, by the writers, even by the actors here. And where this begins with this episode for me is with the Dark Troopers. The Dark Troopers are incredibly terrifying individuals. That's important. And the reason that's important is because the Stormtroopers are not. The Stormtroopers basically show up as cannon fodder. But the Dark Troopers are the ones that we know that we're supposed to be afraid of. Because of this, what happens is Din Djarin ends up fighting a single Dark Trooper and is in a whole lot of trouble in the process. The fight does not go as planned, so what he has to do is he gets those doors closed and he evacuates all of them into space, and we think immediately, oh, well, plot hole, that was easy. They're gone. Good thing they're gone, because they would have won the day. We know that in the back of our heads. They would have won the day. And part of the thing that makes them terrifying is the fact that you can't ever actually see them. The way that their armor is set up is that they are black, but they're also, it seems, partially matted. They're not completely reflective, it doesn't seem, because you can't ever get a real good look at them no matter how many times they are on screen, which makes a little bit of mystery in your mind when you are watching this. And the reason that's important, that the Dark Troopers are so intimidating. So we've got at the bottom level, we have Stormtroopers. Then we've got all of our good guys. We have our good guys that we know are capable fighters, which make the Stormtroopers look like big nothing burgers, right? Our good guys just tear through them until we get a Dark Trooper. And it takes everything in Mando, including his one-shot whistling birds, to get that one Dark Trooper. So we know with all the Dark Troopers that there were, if they all come back to the ship, our good guys are toast. Okay, so that's the level above that. And then we have a showdown with Din Djarin and Moff Gideon. The showdown with Din Djarin and Moff Gideon, Din Djarin's a more skilled fighter. He is a Mandalorian. We understand that. But Moff Gideon is more powerful because he has all of these Dark Troopers and Stormtroopers and whatnot at his disposal. All of these Dark Troopers and Stormtroopers at his disposal that are now gone. So he's very powerful, but outmatched. So there's a level there. And Din Djarin has out-leveled our main bad guy, Moff Gideon. And then something interesting happens. Din Djarin shows up at the hull of the ship with Moff Gideon and the Darksaber. And Katie Sackhoff's Bo-Katan is pretty perturbed. She has an instant look of what seems dismay with insubordination. She's got her head cocked, right? That was for me. What are you doing here? So what we have here is we have someone who is an equal fighter to Din Djarin, but is supposed to outrank him, but does not, because he has the sword, the Darksaber, which she is after. I'm dismayed at the way that sounds. So he has the sword that she wants. Okay, so there's a little bit of a power struggle there. And Din Djarin tries to give the sword back, but the sword, the Darksaber, is, it seems, a bit like a championship belt. There are, however, no interim titles. You can't accidentally hold this belt. You have to win it. To be the man, you have to beat the man. That is how championships work. And, okay, a little bit sexist, because there's Bo-Katan involved. She is a woman. But it is interesting to see the rule of a people's presented in that fashion. Din Djarin the King of Mandalore. Is it King? I don't know. I don't know that much Star Wars lore. I don't know if it is King or not. But we have there the Darksaber being in possession of Din Djarin. So he's the most powerful, but equally the best fighter, probably. We have every reason to believe that he could take down the other Mandalorian on scene, just like they could take him down. Probably a stalemate there, right? And then we get the reemergence of the Dark Troopers. And the most it bears repeating that the most powerful individual in this episode, Mandalore, doesn't exist. There are no Mandalorians per se to rule. Mandalore does not exist. These fragments of the Empire do exist. So still, the most powerful individual that we have in the episode is Moff Gideon. He just has no one to power over until the Dark Troopers return. So the Dark Troopers do return, and they are making their presence felt. They're on their way. They're on their way. And they're terrifying, right? So they are the best fighters, and Moff Gideon is the most powerful. So we still are a ragtag bunch of heroes that are pretty good. Not quite so rag, not quite so tag. They're pretty good. They're still the underdogs. So what we have happening is this Moff Gideon is set to become the most powerful again as he re-inherits the best fighters, the most dangerous fighters. We'll put it that way. So we've got the most powerful and the most dangerous about to be re-teamed up. Until a little X-Wing shows up. And once that X-Wing shows up, boy, those big scary Dark Troopers certainly do seem perturbed. They get distracted. And a great bit of storytelling here is how terrified Moff Gideon appears during this entire transaction, during the time where the X-Wing is boarding the ship. He's everything short of shaking, right? Everything short of absolutely trembling. He doesn't want whoever is on that X-Wing to get a hold of him. Perhaps not because of what they will do to him, but because of to whom they will turn him over. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is, but what are we doing here? We have time and again in this series what I call make good guys scary again. Now, ultimate spoiler for this show, so if you haven't seen it again, go away. Who gets off that X-Wing but Luke Skywalker? So you have Luke Skywalker tearing through the most dangerous fighters like butter, causing the most powerful individual that we have had so far to date in this series to tremble. Make good guys scary again. This bit of storytelling is pronounced because everything that we know these bad guys for, they know Luke Skywalker for. Those Dark Troopers know, I think, from what I understand, they are force sensitive. So the minute he steps off that X-Wing, they stop because they sense the force with him. I think that's how that works. Not 100% positive. The point is they know. They know what's coming. They know what's happening. They know what's about to go down. And because they do, the big scary Dark Troopers are scared. Not literally, because, but they're no longer after Moff Gideon to save him. They know they have to defend themselves against the guy coming down the hallway. So that is interesting. And then we have this scene being so terrifying that Moff Gideon acquires a blaster and first shoots at Bo-Katan. Now, I'm not sure if he's trying to escape or if he's simply trying to commit suicide by cop. It's hard to say, because the next thing he does is go for Grogu. Why go for Grogu? I'm not sure, unless he thinks that maybe if he kills Grogu, by the time Luke comes in, Luke will be so angry he'll just go ahead and decapitate him, I'm not 100% sure. But then he tries to turn the blaster on himself and just straight up commit suicide. So it is interesting to see that. But another thing that is interesting in these power dynamics is the fact that, what do we have here? We have the fact that Gideon knows Bo-Katan. Gideon calls out Bo-Katan. Gideon is having quite a bit of fun understanding the dynamic that is going on between Din Djarin and Bo-Katan. Oh, he's loving it. Well, why don't you go ahead and just have the fight now, right? Because that will shrink your numbers. Maybe something will happen where you need my help. This is having fun with the dynamic at hand, basically being an opportunist, which is something for which we know Moff Gideon. Moff Gideon also, this is very interesting. Moff Gideon, when confronted with Din Djarin, says, now, he was trying to get Din Djarin to turn his back to him so he could kill him, right? Fine, whatever. But I think there's a little bit of truth to the dynamic that what Moff Gideon is saying is that Bo-Katan and the wrestler woman, well, they're savages. They're just savages. They come in and kill everybody. Now, we have precedent to believe that Moff Gideon believes that about Bo-Katan. Remember Season 1 in that two-part finale. Season 1 in the two-part finale, Moff Gideon shows up and says, hey, you got 24 hours to make your decision. I don't want to have to murder you. I don't want to. Give me what I want. Go on your way. I don't want to have to murder you. We can work this out. Would he have been a man of his word? It's hard to say. But we have that precedent to understand that Moff Gideon doesn't just come in blasters ablaze. Although he did kill his own man there, blasters ablaze. The German fella in the first season, didn't care much about him. But we have this idea that Gideon is not necessarily... Gideon seems to have a code of his own. He wants to restore order. That's the main thing. That's the big thing that he says. We can, with the blood of this child, we could restore order to the galaxy. Now, we've had this discussion several times during these two first seasons of The Mandalorian. What is the price for freedom? Do you have to sacrifice a bit of order? There's some things going on there, right? So the authoritarians here, the Empire, certainly value order. In fact, they come up with the First Order, right? Isn't that what we're going to? I don't know. I really don't. Anyway, we'll talk about that a little bit later in this episode. They have this idea in this series that there is to be sacrificed a little bit of freedom, and then everybody gets to live. Look, the Empire, what was it that was said in that first season by the German fellow that Moff Gideon goes ahead and kills? The Empire improves every sector that it touches. Something like that. Probably not a direct quote. In fact, I can't even remember the guy's name, right? So he says the Empire improves every sector that it touches. True to some extent. This is an interesting dynamic to set up in the world of Star Wars. Especially when you're talking about the light and the dark. You have authority and freedom. Along the ideas of authority and freedom comes violence. And the one thing I really value about this show, so we're divulging from that main thrust here a little bit. The one thing that I really value about this show is the fact that you've never seen a lot of this before. I feel, watching the action set pieces in this show, a lot like Captain America, Winter Soldier. All the fights in that movie were original. All the fights in that movie were extremely violent. All of the action set pieces in that movie were extremely novel. All of the action set pieces in that movie you feel. Remember, the Nick Fury car chase scene. Boom. You've seen 1,000 car chases. You've never seen that one. Right? You've never seen that one. Captain America squaring up with George St. Pierre, Batroc the Leaper. You've seen a million fight scenes in superhero movies. You've never seen that one. And so, with this series, we have that same novel thrust. Everyone's fighting style is extremely aggressive. That's interesting. Everyone moves forward as they are fighting. Even probably the least skilled fighter in the group that we seem to see, Moff Gideon. When he has that darksaber in his hand, he's not trying to escape. He's trying to kill Din Djarin. Remember the scene where it's embedded in the wall and he's just walking him down? He's walking Din Djarin down as Din Djarin has the Beskar saber, the Beskar spear, whatever you call it. So that is interesting. You have all of these characters whose attack fight style is forward. So it's interesting to see that, and I can appreciate that. Everything is so aggressive. In fact, I didn't figure... So first off, Bib Fortuna, I think that's the character at the end. Did you expect to see somebody just get straight up murked, shot in the chest, point blank range on Disney Plus? What about at the beginning of the episode when the John Mayer pilot, the guy that looks like John Mayer, boom, right between the eyes? Did you expect to see that on Disney Plus? What about when Din Djarin just straight up fucking breaks a dude's neck? I didn't expect to see that on Disney Plus. Gives me hope for the X-Men on Disney Plus. Gives me hope for the Marvel stuff on Disney Plus. I'm a much bigger Marvel fan than I am a Star Wars guy. But yeah, John Mayer took it right between the eyes. It's been interesting to see the level and type of violence on this show. Moving forward to another theme involved in this show. A lot is made lately of gender in Hollywood and gender politics and identity politics and all this stuff. I don't see it in this show. There was the girl power scene where Finnick, Cara, Bo, and wrestler lady, I don't know her name in this series, where they're just walking down stormtroopers. Doesn't feel like a girl power scene, does it? Not much is made of it. It just happens on screen. And no one cares. It's just a badass scene because it's the good guys going after the bad guys. Right? So who cares? This is how you do it. No one makes a big deal out of it. It just is what it is, and everyone, it's not forced. It's not forced, not pun intended with Star Wars, right? But it's not forced. It's just presented to us, and we know the characters involved, so we love it. We know the characters involved, so we love it. Similarly, who expected, when you sat down to watch this episode, when you sat down at the beginning of this season, when you sat down at the beginning of this series, episode 1, season 1, who expected to see a bunch of heartless women standing around while the daddy cries over his son leaving? That happens in this episode. You have the two Mandalorian, Bo-Katan and Sasha Banks, Cara Dune, and Finnick, all standing around, not cold-hearted. They understand what's going on, but they're not crying. Din Djarin is. He's going to deny it later. He's going to say he wasn't crying. Just like he says he's not. What was it in the first, when IG-11 sacrifices himself? I'm not sad. Yes, you are. So we have both of these seasons ending with Din Djarin getting emotional. Something for which we do not know Mandalorians, at least from my understanding of Mandalorians. We have both seasons ending with Din Djarin taking off his helmet. Happens in the first season too. It's a droid this season. But here, boy, it's everybody. So that is interesting. But if we're talking about themes, if we're talking about classic symbology, if we're talking about things that we just sort of feel in our core, the role of the mother is to nurture. We feel that, right? It just maybe it's just culture, right? I'm willing to admit that. Could be just cultural thing, right? Mother's nurture, that's a cultural thing. It's not in there. It's not bred in there. I don't care. I don't care. In the same school of thought that says the mother's job is to nurture, the father's job is to get you ready and kick you out. Same school of thought. two ideas, two sides of that. Mother's job is to nurture. Father's job is to get you ready, kick you out of the house. Din Djarin does it. Din Djarin is that father figure in this season. And boy, does it have an effect, I think, probably on everyone who watches this. The father's role is to push you out. And he does it. Now, father's role is to push you out into the universe, into society, where you will find a specialist to train you with what it is that you want to do in life. Look, mom doesn't want you to leave for college. Dad's ready for you to go. In college, you go and you learn a trade, and then hopefully you get a job, right? That is essentially, in the Star Wars universe, what we're getting here, which is interesting to see. Moving forward just a little bit. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I mentioned Star Wars. In the Star Wars universe, that's what we're getting here. I mentioned X-Men a little bit earlier. I mentioned the fact that I'm a Marvel guy, not a Star Wars guy. I grew up with comics. I grew up raised by the television. I grew up raised by X-Men cartoons. I don't know how this episode feels to hardcore Star Wars fans. I don't know. I don't understand it. I'm not a Star Wars guy. I understand that seeing Luke come on screen must have been heart-wrenching. I understand that seeing Luke and R2 must have been pretty special. I also understand that seeing Luke with a Yoda creature must be pretty fantastic. I don't understand how those things feel. My fandom doesn't understand it. The closest I have had to that moment was the movie Logan. Wolverine was a character with whom I identified growing up because Wolverine was a loner who didn't have any friends and wanted to stay alone. That was me as a kid. I understand how heavy that Logan movie felt because it was the first time we really got Wolverine on screen. It was the first time we got a comics accurate Logan on screen. All the other X-Men movies, it's a pretty good characterization, but that ain't Wolverine. In Logan, that's Wolverine, baby. And that was a heavy moment for me. I can understand that seeing the sequel trilogy for Star Wars fans was worse, probably, than watching X-Men Origins Wolverine, right? Because at least in X-Men Origins Wolverine, it's a caricature of Wolverine, but it's still Wolverine. From what I understand, the Luke Skywalker portrayed in the sequel trilogy, that ain't Luke Skywalker, baby. This episode, from what I know, from what I understand, that seemed like Luke Skywalker. You have this has to feel so good for Star Wars fans that the property that they love is back in the hands of people who love the property. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. It also gives me hope for the X-Men as they pertain to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It seemed... Look, I was, of course, a Spider-Man fan. I grew up on comics, so I was a Spider-Man fan growing up. So the original Spider-Man movies, they were pretty cool. Seeing him in the Marvel movies, that's cooler. I knew a little bit about Iron Man. I understand that the Iron Man on screen, yeah, that's Iron Man. I understand that the Captain America on screen, that's the Captain America from the comic books. I understand that the Hulk on screen, that's the Hulk from the comic books. Doesn't hit me like the X-Men will. Does not hit me like the X-Men will. So I am hopeful for that. Now, after the credits, we had an interesting Marvel-type post-credit scene with Boba Fett. The Book of Boba Fett coming December 2021. Strange, because as we heard, there was a release, I think, for this. I think it was official that Season 3 of The Mandalorian was going to be December 2021. it makes me wonder what we're going to get there. What is happening with that? Season 3 of The Mandalorian, is it going to be intertwined with Boba Fett? Are they going to be two concurrent series? Is there not going to be a Season 3 of The Mandalorian? Baby Yoda is gone. Grogu is gone. We heard from many people who said there's no Mandalorian without Grogu. I beg to differ. I think this entire season was setting it up so that there would be. We didn't get a whole lot of action from Grogu this season at all. If you pay close attention, Grogu is always left somewhere as the Mandalorian is trying to pursue something. So it's going to be interesting to me to see exactly what it is that we have in The Mandalorian Season 3. After all, Din Djarin rules Mandalore. Bo-Katan's taken orders from him. So what are we doing there? What is the payoff there? What is the path forward there? And when are we seeing Season 3 of The Mandalorian? A small question from that. Din Djarin, Cara Dune showed up in this episode with Boba Fett. Boba Fett in the Slave One. Din Djarin doesn't have a ship. Luke is gone in his X-Wing. Boba Fett is with Fennec Shan on the royal throne of the underworld or something. I don't 100% know. Let me know. Tell me in the comments if you do understand that. I am not a Star Wars guy, like I said. I don't understand exactly what's going on there. With whom are Din Djarin and Cara Dune now? Did Boba Fett drop them off on the way to pursue being king of the underworld? Are they on Mandalore? Did they go with Bo-Katan? Is Bo-Katan taking orders from Din Djarin? Did Din Djarin flash that lightsaber and say, hey, lady, let's go. Bring the car around. Where are my bags? It is interesting to see what's going on there. But I think it is nice to acknowledge the fact this episode is all money shots. This episode is all fulfillment. There are questions going forward, but there's no cliffhanger. I was expecting 100%. They go on this mission, they lose Grogu, they fail this mission. The end of the episode is a Jedi showing up at the planet where Grogu was doing the skybeam. Then we have an intro to Season 3. We have questions, because we don't know where Season 3 is going to be going, but we don't have any cliffhangers. There's no cliffhangers. We thought we were going to get a Jedi, we got a Jedi. We thought we were going to get Luke Skywalker, perhaps we got Luke Skywalker. We thought there was going to be a big old battle with the Dark Troopers. There was a big old battle with the Dark Troopers. We thought that the Dark Saber was going to switch hands. The Dark Saber switched hands. We thought all these things might happen. We thought a lot of these things might happen in Season 3. Everything went down today, baby. Everything is off the books. So it is, I think that is important to recognize that they're not tagging us along. They are giving us entire stories to the tune of 46 minutes. This is almost a movie. This is almost a movie. Now, I know there's 5 minutes gone with the intro and the opening credits and the end credits and that sort of thing. This is 46 minutes of money shots. This is way more than the third act of a movie. This was huge. And a lot of Star Wars type lingo. Dank Farrik. We have the Star Wars equivalent of the pot calling the kettle black when all these things are going. When Boba Fett shows up to try to... Boba Fett shows up at the bar with Sasha Banks and Bo-Katan. We have that little exchange. So there's a lot going on there. The last couple things I really have to talk about are really off the beaten path. They're not necessary, but the face stuff is still weird. Eyes look flat. It looks like a mask. It looks like a person mask. That is weird to me. I know it's technology that they're still working on, but it is weird to me. And the final thing is, are we forgetting the sequel trilogy here? Are we just forsaking it? Is it gone to be gone? Or does Baby Yoda die at some point? Does Grogu die at some point? Or is he shipped off someplace else? I don't know, but he's not in that sequel trilogy. So if he's not in that sequel trilogy, and he very much exists right now, what's going on with it? What is going on with it? Perhaps Grogu is going to be what sets off the events after the sequel trilogy. Maybe we have that connection coming. It's hard to say, but that is all I have for this, the review for the final episode of The Mandalorian Season 2. Season 2, Episode 8, The Rescue, also known as Chapter 16. I hope to have you back. I don't know what we're going to be talking about from here going forward.